welcome back to Kapp Tech. Today we're going to look at the debacle that is the rise and fall of the Chicago mortgage scene. One more ridiculous story. This is the 76th video in our catalog, which I thought would be recommended by Sean Bradley, the Stormin' Mormon, who wore 76 jersey number on the 76ers, but couldn't get a request out of him, so I got one out of my buddy Dave from Chicago. Dave said, tell me about the time when you were living large in Chicago and the colorful character that helped you run the mortgage operation up there, named simply Juan, known with only one name, Juan, such as Sting for the purposes of this video. Funny Dave should recommend this because I actually had him in mind for another video, which is odd things that have happened to me in Chicago since I've left, in addition to randomly running into Dave fairly often. Seems odd given the population that we always see each other on the street. I also ran into some girls around noon that had a nip slip incident and was able to run out and grab a little girl's hat from the middle of the street and stop slow-moving traffic. But I don't consider myself a hero. Anyway, props to Dave for calling to my attention this awesome story, which, by the way, I did get the permission from the person known as Juan to make, kind of, and that permission was gained, but this is still what we would call a heavily redacted version. This doesn't go into how the meat gets made, so to speak. That's more about my Confessions of an Ex-Mortgage Broker video. This is more about the interesting characters you encounter along the way, such as, and I blurred the faces here for their own protection, what I covered in my Southern Illinois Mafia Syndicate video. Simply stated, people care about their doctor, then their lawyer, and then pretty much their finance guy. So it's ironic when people would choose us drunken bankers to help them out, but we're glad they did. It was quite a run. Got in bed, so to speak, with a large condo developer and was able to get deals on the models, get some special incentives, etc. But just got to live, like the rich and famous would almost, downtown Chicago, about a decade ago now, long enough for a lot of the statutes of limitations on this to be up, legally if not socially. Anyway, wanted to kind of dive into the details on what that life was like. Now, years back, there wasn't a ton of entry barriers to becoming a mortgage loan officer in Illinois. It was probably easier to become a barber from an administrative standpoint. And it wasn't that much harder to actually become an actual mortgage broker. These low entry barriers mixed with good market conditions made for a scene where you could meet some very, very interesting characters. We all know this is a story that isn't gonna end well due to the erosion of the 3 C's of lending: capacity, character, and collateral. Pretty much turned into all smoke and mirrors, but was a hell of a ride on the way down. Let me tell you about that ride. First, at the top of the pyramid, we'll look at the money man. Now you can understand that I've got a Jewish last name, and that the entry barriers were low enough that old Jewish men would like to hire me to run their mortgage operation. Typically, they would meet me somewhere at an old diner where only old men would go, and arrange some heavily incented, low salary agreement that would let me come out okay if my guys could sell. So it doesn't matter who was at the top; they were interchangeable. Me and my people left in a group, but let's get into who those people were now. Essentially, I was brought on as a front man, the face of the business, if you will, and I would manage my crew. I was at a young age to do it, but happy to give it a shot. I got to live here at the Sterling at 345 North LaSalle with Red Foreman. They also, who lived there at the time, the actor that played him, and they also had TVs in the lobby so we could kind of watch our own little show on what was happening down there. What's Red Foreman gonna do today? But my story is not nearly as interesting as that of my then consigliere, known only as Juan, kind of like Sting only has one name. Those of you that know it, feel free to yell it at your screen right now. It does roll off the tongue, but we're just going to treat it like we're going to treat him like Sting. He's equally as big celebrity, so if you don't already know his name, you will not. The first time I really went somewhere nice with Wanda, we went to the Drake, the bar there, and asked for a beer. And the bartender looked right at him and said, "Ha, I know you. You can't have a beer, but I'll get you either coffee or water." I thought it was odd, but treated it like a one-off until a very similar incident happened on the third story of Fado. But luckily, Wando's hangout was usually the Polish liquor store, which was a liquor store bar in a less than favorable block of downtown Chicago, where the clientele was basically old men and call girls, and they didn't judge anybody for drinking too much. Best part about Juan is his many nicknames, kind of like Bubba Shrimp, and Bubba Gump knew about shrimp. So at any moment in time, he might go by Wando, the head Wancho, Juan more X, like fill in the blank, Mr. Wonderful, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Juan Too Many, Juan in a Million, and oddly enough, and we'll get to this later, the greatest legal mind of our generation. You see, Juan had a lot of credentials. He went to an elite private school in St. Louis, had European and South American parents. He once was able to smuggle a general's son out of the former Soviet bloc. If Juan wasn't raised as a one-percenter, he was certainly raised among them. He would party in his youth with the DuPonts at DuPont Mansion, and eventually made a lot of money by suing Purolator Courier. Got so much out of that when he wound up at the Boca Raton Resort and Spa down in Florida for an extended period of time. Wando was also a key player in the burning boat debacle that I cover in my 15 short true stories video. I'm going to own that along with a little bit of my buddy Rudy as well. But Wando was in the neighborhood. Where does this interesting character named Juan live at the time? 33 West Ontario, also known as the Double Wide in the Sky. Juan lived with a man, our capo, simply known as the Horse. This is an actual photo here that I've blurred slightly. Horse straight out of Murfreesboro, Illinois, as tough as they come, and ran our Black Ops, so I can't tell you a lot of details about him, although he did once hit Wando with a slice of pizza. Can't tell you exactly the kind of thing our capo, the Horse, was up to, but this quote from JFK kind of sums it up. Donald Sutherland says to Kevin Costner, "No one says the president must die. There's been no vote, nothing on paper. It's as old as the crucifixion. A military firing squad, 5 bullets, 1 blank, nobody's guilty." That's the kind of thing Horse was up to. That's as far as I can get into it. With my capo and consigliere, as well as other members of the group, we would often meet here at the Boss Bar, full of Eastern European immigrants, or Mother Hubbard's, which is actually halfway between Comiskey Park, and Wrigley Field. Sometimes we had to go to the Hideout, which is not open to the public, but pictured here. But most of the time we could be found in public if you knew where to look. I'm not sure if it was caused by hitting him with the slice of pizza, but eventually Horse and Wando did not live together anymore, so I wound up with Horse over here at 800 South Wells in the River City building. River City's full of modern art and such, and it went pretty well over there until we invited in a new roommate named Moses, who was a DJ and just would hellaciously play music, and we'd throw great parties all night and stuff, but the River City people the management was quite litigious at the end of the day, so it didn't go well. Now let's take a look at the rest of the crew. So, hailing from Tinley Park, Illinois, we have Mongo. His name and huge size, though, was just a disguise because he was really our money man and not an enforcer. Joke's on the world, not on us. Another key member of the crew, known only as the Root Dog, just the smoothest operator you ever saw. He was actually the landlord of the Capo and the Consigliere. We don't really know how he did it. It said he could make anyone sign anything. You wouldn't think your high six-figure, low seven-figure landlord would be living in a trailer, but you can pay the rent. He'll be out in the sticks. For more on Rudy, watch this video. Next, let's take a look at one of our best pure salesmen, covered under the protection of alias here, Mr. James Quarters. James used to remind us all the time that pimping wasn't easy, but it sure was fun. James lived a little off the beaten path from the rest of us at this secret hideout somewhere on the south side near the checkerboard. He used to make us wear blindfolds to go over there. Incidentally, that's where one of my buddies had played against a pimp in chess for, I don't know if you call it the freedom of a young lady or the right to walk away for the evening for a young lady, but that's covered in my 15 strange but true stories video. Oddly enough, after I was not working with James anymore, the FBI called me a couple times looking for him, at home even. I said I didn't know where James was, because I didn't. Last but not least, rounding out our crew, the leader of our telemarketing boiler room and all the power that entails, Mr. Lee Von Poet, a very well-rounded man. Not only was Lee Von Poet an actual poet, he was also a mentor to many people, a manager of our telemarketing boiler room back when you're allowed to have one, and a true player. I mean, the man loved love. At one point, after being rebuffed in his quest to make somebody agree to refinance, he said, all right, if you're not interested in a refi, then how about a date then? Just an interesting character, as all of us were. That is the end of our video. I really appreciate you watching, appreciate Dave's suggestion, appreciate Juan giving the permission. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Kapp Tech is now available on Twitter, Facebook, Patreon, and YouTube. Thank you.